The Hey Eddie podcast is brought to you by... Is a shepherd boy about to fight a giant for you? Make sure he looks the part. Introducing Saul's Royal Armor Fitting Service. We'll take any scrawny teenager and load him up with the finest bronze helmet, the heaviest coat of mail, and a sword so big he can barely lift it. Who cares if he can't walk? Who cares if he's never worn armor before? He'll look like a soldier, and that's what matters. Our fitting process takes only minutes. Simply pile on layer after layer until your champion can no longer move his arms, see his feet, or breathe properly. Saul's Royal Armor Fitting Service, because obviously the kid needs our stuff to win. Disclaimer. Champion may remove all armor immediately. Shepherd boys may prefer rocks, slings not included. The battle actually belongs to the Lord, not to the swords or spears or fancy helmets. 5 smooth stones sold separately. This is the Hey Eddie podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. The Hey Eddie podcast is dedicated to helping kids like my cool cousin Eddie learn about the Bible and learn important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. The Bible is indeed God's gift to kids, a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. On today's episode of the Hey Eddie podcast, we're going to be studying 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 31 through 47, in a lesson titled, The Shepherd's Secret. This lesson will teach us that the battle is the Lord's. Victory doesn't come from the biggest weapons or the strongest soldiers, but from God. Our key memory verse is 1 Samuel 17:47. The battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. Hey Eddie, welcome back to part 2 of our David and Goliath story. Now, last time we met the giant, Goliath, 9 feet tall, covered in armor, mocking Israel and their God twice a day for 40 days. The whole Israelite army was terrified. Nobody could fight him. Then David showed up, a shepherd boy delivering cheese and bread to his brothers. And when he heard Goliath's insults, he asked the question nobody else was asking. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Word reached King Saul, and now David is about to have the most important conversation of his life. Ready? Let's go. David walked into Saul's tent. The king looked at him, this teenager, this shepherd, this kid who wasn't even old enough to be a soldier. And David said, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Wait, what? David wasn't just asking questions anymore. He was volunteering. Saul's response made total sense. You were not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You were only a boy, and he has been a fighting man from his youth. Saul was being reasonable. Goliath had been training for war his whole life. David was a teenager who watched sheep. In human terms, this was a ridiculous mismatch. But David had a secret, and he was about to share it. Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. Hold on, Eddie. Let that sink in. David wasn't just some kid who sat around watching sheep eat grass. David had fought lions. David had fought bears. And he had killed them with his bare hands. When a predator grabbed one of his sheep, David didn't run away. He ran after it. He attacked it. He grabbed it by the mane or the fur and beat it to death. This wasn't foolish bravery. This was David's job. Day after day, year after year, out in the wilderness alone, David had learned to fight dangerous enemies. And here's the key. Listen carefully. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied the armies of the living God. In David's mind, Goliath had just joined the lion and bear category. By mocking God, Goliath had become nothing more than another dangerous animal that needed to be dealt with. But David wasn't done. He saved the most important part for last. The Lord, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. This is David's secret, Eddie. David didn't say, I killed lions and bears because I'm strong and brave. He said, the Lord delivered me. David looked back at every dangerous moment in those fields, every lion attack, every bear encounter, and he saw God's hand protecting him. God delivered him then, God would deliver him now. This is how faith works. You remember what God has done in the past, and that gives you confidence for the future. David's faith wasn't blind, it was built on experience. What could Saul say to that? Go and the Lord be with you. Saul decided to help. He put his own armor on David. Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. Think about this a moment, Eddie. The king, the tallest man in Israel, was dressing David in royal armor. Symbolically, it was like Saul was handing over his kingship. But here's the problem. David tried to walk, and he could barely move. I cannot go in these, he said to Saul, because I am not used to them. So he took them off. This is so important. Saul was trying to turn David into a little Goliath. Here, wear armor like the giant wears. Fight the way he fights. But David knew better. David wasn't going to win by playing Goliath's game. He wasn't going to out-giant the giant. He had a different approach, the approach God had been training him for his whole life. So what did David take instead? Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and, with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. A stick, a bag, a sling, 5 rocks from the creek. That's it. No sword, no armor, no shield, just shepherd gear. Now, don't underestimate that sling. A skilled slinger could hurl a stone at over 100 miles per hour with deadly accuracy. Ancient armies used slingers as serious weapons of war. David could hit a target from way farther away than Goliath could throw his spear. But still, compared to Goliath's 125 pounds of armor and his massive weapons, David looked like he was bringing a pebble to a tank fight. And that was exactly the point. Goliath saw David coming, and he couldn't believe his eyes. He looked David over and saw that he was only a boy, ruddy and handsome, and he despised him. Goliath was insulted. This was the best Israel could send? A good-looking kid with a stick? Am I a dog that you came at me with sticks? Then Goliath did something serious, and the Philistine cursed David by his gods. He called on his false gods to destroy David. He was invoking spiritual powers against this shepherd boy. Then came the threat. Come here, and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. Goliath promised to kill David and leave his body unburied, the ultimate disgrace. The birds and wild animals would eat his corpse. If you or I were standing there, hearing a 9-foot giant curse us and promise to feed us to the vultures, we'd probably run. But David opened his mouth and delivered one of the greatest speeches in the entire Bible. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. David acknowledged Goliath's weapons, sword, spear, javelin. Yeah, they're impressive. But David had something better, the name of the Lord. Not just any God, the Lord of hosts, the God who commands armies of angels, the God who created the universe, the God of Israel. That's who David represented. And then David made a prophecy. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth. Wait, did you catch that? Goliath threatened to feed David to the birds. David said, no, the Philistine army would be bird food. Not just Goliath, the whole army. Why? Here's the reason. And the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. This wasn't about David becoming famous. This was about God becoming known. David wanted the whole world to see that Israel's God was real. And then the final line, the heart of the whole story. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. The battle is the Lord's. Not won by a sword or spear, Not won by the biggest armor or the tallest soldier, won by God. So what does this mean for you? First, Eddie, your past experiences prepare you for future battles. David's lion and bear fighting weren't random, they were training. What has God brought you through that might be preparing you for something bigger? Second, remember what God has done. David's confidence came from remembering, the Lord who delivered me then will deliver me now. Keep track of what God does for you. It builds your faith. Third, don't try to be someone else. Saul's armor didn't fit David. God had prepared David to fight as a shepherd, not as a soldier. Be who God made you to be. Fourth, the battle is the Lord's. This is the main point of the whole story. Victory doesn't come from the biggest weapons or the strongest soldiers. It comes from God. And God loves to use weak things to defeat strong things so that He gets the glory. The trash talk is over. The speeches are done. Next time, the stone flies. This has been the Hey Eddie Podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. Remember that the Hey Eddie Podcast is dedicated to studying the Bible and learning important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. Today we discussed 1 Samuel chapter 17. Tune in soon for another episode of the Hey Eddie Podcast, where we'll finish our study of 1 Samuel 17 and the story of David and Goliath. Love you, Eddie.